next speaker is a student here at Rowan University, a senior music and theater student, Nia Ali, and she will be speaking about what mass incarceration means and what it means for the future of today's youth here.
Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So, like he said, my name is Nia Ali. I'm a student here, senior. So I'm going to be talking about the youth component of Decarcerate, which I'm a part of, and hopefully we get some more people to join behind us today and as we go further. So I want to talk first about why I feel and Decarcerate feels that educating the youth on this specific issue is important. The term mass incarceration is always heard, but I really like to go with hyper incarceration. Basically because this issue only affects a targeted group. So, like they were saying before, Black and brown communities, poor immigrants, specifically targeted. So hyper incarceration. The youth is our future and our present. So we need to make sure that they're being educated on this issue because we don't want this cycle to continue. We don't want the youth to keep having lack of education on this issue and keep falling victim to the traps that are out there for them and set up for them to in a system that's set up for them to fail. So it's really important that we get this information out. I don't feel like this is something. It's really important that we get this information out to the youth so they can continue to be educated and aware of their circumstances that are affecting them. A lot of times nowadays, it's like the youth are sleeping, they're lost, they're distracted by so many different things, media distractions, and just not really aware of the important issue, which is hyper-incarceration ties into a lot of other issues. So I think that's another reason why we have to keep educating them on this specific issue because it ties into other issues with immigration, police brutality, and all these other issues, the political prisoners that have been locked up for so long. So we're hoping that this component works as a vehicle for educating the youth, especially students of color, especially younger students that are in high school, middle school age kids who are most likely blind to the issue. I know for me, I wasn't able to really grasp the issue until I came to college. So it's really important that we figure out some kind of way to get this information to younger students so they don't get kind of hit with all this information at once, kind of like a lot of us do when we get to into higher education, and sometimes not even then, especially because the education system in high school and middle school and elementary is not really focused on our issues in our communities, Black and brown communities, and sort of teach you stuff that's not really of importance to your life, kind of just teaching you how to go along and just be a slave pretty much. So it's important that we continue to educate youth about that so the cycle doesn't continue. So I feel like what we should be educating the youth on, if you join in this youth component, is definitely, like I was saying before, everyone should know what a political prisoner is. I feel like that gets lost a lot, and it's important because when you're doing, like it was said before, when you're doing things like organizing and going to actions and protesting, you're going to be specifically targeted because you're doing stuff that's supposed to be bettering your community while there's all this other stuff working against tear your community down. So youth need to know that that's out there, that we are encouraging them to come and organize and help us organize, but they need to be aware that there's other forces out there working to keep them, to stop that from happening. Yeah, so we need to keep the sort of energy up around the youth because they're the ones that are going to be having the energy to have this sort of mass uprising that we want to have around this issue. So keeping them aware is one of our essential focuses. I think that we should also keep reminding them that there are no sort of coincidences in the society that we are in. Like there's not a coincidence that there's all these distractions going around, these things that are purposely being done to keep us unaware and sleeping and not having this sort of I don't care mentality to keep these issues going on. Educating them on how skewed the justice system is in this country, that all of this is set up on purpose for us to fail. So keeping that narrative sort of in their minds so they can have a desire or a need to want to get out of the situations that we are being forced into. Also, we need to be educating them as this component on how the prison system ties in with the education system, and talking about the school to prison pipeline that has been going on for how long. And so educating them on the fact that students of color in these Black and brown communities are being targeted from the start with zero tolerance policies and these policies that make it possible for students to be removed from school, tossed out of school for petty things that are sort of hyped up, and then they get sent to detention centers, and then from there the problem continues on. There's no sort of, just like in the prison system, there's no actual rehabilitation happening, there's actually no help happening, it's actually just being sort of passed along the line and just swept under the rug. So helping them to realize that that's a reality, that there's not really much help out there for them. And a lot of these students like that are targeted by these zero tolerance policies and these petty sort of charges are a lot of the times the same people that need help. They have mental disabilities, or they're being abused at home, or issues of poverty, and they need help. And they could benefit from additional counseling and education, but they aren't. They're isolated and punished and pushed out. So I think we just need to focus on shedding light on all of the injustices so that students, youth can be aware of the issues and come together and sort of put our minds together to continue the energy of having this issue be highlighted because it ties into everything else, all the other issues. Specifically, like, I remember at the last panel, Decarcerate talked about how it's beneficial that the youth know that what happened in the 60s, 70s, the people, the political prisoners that are in jail now, it was a backlash towards them for them sort of rising up and saying that they don't want these things to be going on. So educating them on the fact that yes, it's sort of a dangerous area to go into organizing and activism, but sort of banding together and knowing that if we're educated on what happened in the past, that we can move forward from that and be a little smarter about how to continue to keep the energy of highlighting this issue, shedding light on these injustices so we can move past them and reform the prison system and hopefully the education system. And doing this through our action plan for Decarcerate, which includes these panels, the Tour de Decarcerate and the Decarcerator paper, study groups, just like she mentioned about Michelle Alexander's book, in Jim Crow, we have study groups for these types of things so you can be educated on the issues and just attacking it from that angle, that educating them and encouraging them to organize and mobilize and come together in their communities and empower them to do it on their own individually and also collectively. And so yeah, through that 6-point plan, that's how we plan to keep the youth aware. And Bob's going to talk about that later.